Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the TOA Global, Why We All Need an EA session. Very excited to see you all today. It's my first time here with the team at TOA since joining back in May this year. Fantastic to be part of the crew, and I look forward to taking you through over the next 45 minutes or so why it's important and what is the upside to having a fantastic EA by your side for all the work and the personal things you need to get done. The world we live in today is the most demanding of time it has ever been, and things are coming at us all the time. In fact, it's so demanding that we're losing our personal life to what basically is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week work life. And so what I want to take you through in the next 45 minutes is the best way to look after your EA, why it's important to have an EA, and what are the things that you can actually do going forward to make sure that the use of your personal assistant or executive assistant is leveraged to the best of your ability. So my name is Stephen Watts, as I just mentioned. I'm the General Manager for the Outsourced Accountant Australia New Zealand, and today I want to take you through the success stories of what I've seen in the last couple of months, but also elaborate on why our business has been so successful in utilizing EAs internally, and on top of that, what it looks like for our customers today. I also want to take you through what are the steps to success so that if you choose to go down this particular path, you in fact will have the best opportunity to take advantage of any EAs available with our team here in the Philippines. All right, so let's step through this. One of the things I've noticed coming from the accounting profession myself, but also working in various technology companies and now joining our people company here at TOA, is that time is critical. And the most important thing that erodes our time is being busy. So what I want to do is dip into what are the things that actually keep you busy constantly, and how do we make sure we can start to look at what are the ways to bring back that time into your day to focus on the things that are most important for you. You know, we're contactable by email, telephone, social media, even Microsoft Teams at any stage. And it's important to remember that the things that are most important in your life should be the focus points, with the remainder hopefully looked after by an EA. It's going to get harder and harder. And as we start to expand and become more of a global team, I want to take you through how do you set yourself up for success and what is the most appropriate way to bring those particular team members on board throughout your organization, but also for yourself. So Tom, who joins me today, is my EA in the Philippines. In fact, Tom was my very first virtual EA, and taking some time to get to know Tom, his culture, what Tom likes, was really important and a big factor in setting up the successful relationship that we have today. I spent the first few months with Tom making sure that we were aligned on the things that were most important for my particular role. I also needed to understand the way in which Tom worked so that we can make sure that he was most effective working alongside my calendar, my email, and all the communication channels that are coming in and out around my particular role and function here, but also the roles and functions of this organization. Because not only does Tom help me out with my particular resource, he's also a fantastic support mechanism for my big and wider team throughout Australia and New Zealand. So a little bit about Tom. Tom joined the organization some time ago. He has a very good knowledge of the culture in the Philippines, but also understands the way in which TOA works and how it best suits our organization. When I first went through the process of looking for an EA in the Philippines, it was important for me to understand what I did with my time, how I actually went through these particular areas of focus for work, and what it meant for me to have somebody support me, not only in my business life, but also my personal life. So what I want you to go through today as we step through what makes the EA the right role to support you is to take some time and think about what are the things that take up all of your spare time. What are the areas that make you, I guess, more focused when you're in your busy times? And then really start to focus in on how could we start to structure your diary, your calendar, your emails to make the most of what's available in front of you. So I want you to spend a moment just right now and write down this week, what are the things you've spent your time on? Are there areas where your personal life has been encroached on by your business life? And what are the things that you could do differently to actually increase the amount of time you're available? One of the mottos I live by is work to live and not live to work. And so when I think about my daily routine, often I'll wake up early. I'll spend about 45 minutes in the gym before 6 a.m. And then I'm at the office for a 7 a.m. start. Without Tom, I find it really difficult to structure my time appropriately. And I end up spending many hours in emails. I end up spending a lot of time in hallway conversations. And then by the end of the day, some of those most important tasks I've actually missed completely. And so by not having Tom in place, it's this sort of busyness that really distracts me from focusing on this particular business. But it also means I have less time for my family and my friends and my close relatives, where I actually want to spend that quality time outside of work and not being bothered by the things that take up my 9 to 5. So as we go through this session, think about the things that you do from a day-to-day basis. For me, as I said before, it's important that I do those non-work or social activities, and then start to map those things into other parts of your life. I've spent many years traveling on the road, particularly between Australia and New Zealand, and I've spent countless hours on planes, unfortunately not today, but countless hours on planes where if I had have had an EA to support me, would give me things to focus on during those downtimes and times where I could have done something else other than watch TV, this would be really, really beneficial for not only for me, but also for my team. So spend some time, think about what are those activities that you focus in on? What are the things that keep you busy during the day? Write those down. And as we go through the next 40 minutes, I'm going to start to apply some of the logic that I've used to really help me with Tom understand my calendar, understand what keeps me busy, and then open up areas of opportunity to ensure that I can get my things done a lot quicker and also meet the expectations of my customers and my team. So let's take a moment here to consider what's actually worth your time. We did a study a little while ago, and we understand now that a big portion of your day-to-day activities across the accounting and finance profession is spent doing emails and calls. So when you really drill down and think about what is that 45% of the time worth in emails and calls, you may find that it's a lot of ineffective, or if you like, not productive work that you could have been spending elsewhere. A lot of the phone calls or emails are bush files. As I said, they're probably not proactive. In fact, only 23% of the time we spend is in client issues. 40% is spent in meetings. And if you're a manager or a partner, realistically, the majority of your time should actually be spent with your customers face to face. In my particular role, I come down to the same thing. And a lot of my time in my previous roles, but also coming into this job without an EA, was spent looking at those sort of busy tasks. So with technology, we want to make sure that we can open up what's available to us, and through the use of those particular reporting mechanisms, really drill down into the areas of time that are available. It's really natural at the moment to feel quite stretched. Obviously, we're going through some unprecedented times. I've had a lot of conversations with business owners and managers, and 3 focus areas that they always want to talk about is typically people, process, and technology. Unfortunately, without having that time available to focus on those things, it means that those 3 really important items inside your business or in the role that you play for your business are often distracted or unavailable for you to hone in on. So because of Tom, I'm now able to focus on those areas and create space. It allows me to focus on the priorities for the business. And as an example, in the accounting institution that we've just released, I can actually place some emphasis with my team and really open up opportunities for our accounting partners that may have been missed in the past because we were all busy. So as I said, take some time today, write down a journal entry of the times you were busy, what that particular time looked like. And as we go through, I want to start marking off particular things with you that may allow you and your EA to actually work more effectively and more efficient at and get you across the line quicker. There's an old saying in this business, and particularly comes from Mr. Nick Sinclair, and that is, if you don't have an EA, you're effectively your own. And so one of the hardest things for me when I first joined this organization was to understand how to effectively use Tom in a way that made sense for the both of us. As we step through, I want you to start considering if you were able to leverage an EA and take away some of those busyness tasks, what it would mean for you in your professional life, potentially even in your own personal life, and what could you do with that time instead of being spent in those busy tasks. The value that this particular role could add to you and your organization is significant. And we'll spend time now talking about how you could potentially use that role against different people or for different teams, and not only have the one-to-one type relationship, but expand that, because there is opportunities for us here as an organization and likewise in an accounting function to understand how to actually use those resources as a shared resource as well. So have a think about this. If you were able to save 1 to 2 hours per week, what does that mean for you in terms of value? I guess the question really is, if you had 1 to 2 hours back per week, what would you do with that time? And that's critical to understanding what an executive assistant could do for you. If you've got 500 emails coming through per day, it's seriously most likely that you're unable to respond to those customers or clients or requests within an hour or even less. It's unlikely you can give the experience that you're looking to give because you're busy going through the things that are probably not that important or don't need action straight away. So having your EA will actually allow you to make sure you mitigate the risk around those critical factors from your customers, but it also means you can start to push away any of those distractions coming through. So some of our clients have put on roles in the past, and those particular roles offer different functions within the practice. So an executive assistant is not only just for one-to-one relationships, as I mentioned before. An EA can also offer different functions within your business today. And if you think about it, some of those functions might be quite simple. So some of our firms and clients out there have actually employed an EA to manage their centralized inbox. So what that means is as the 500 or 6 emails come through per week, and maybe even day if you're lucky, that means that particular function can actually take care of those emails and provide your customers, prospects, with a really timely response that increases the level of experience that they're actually after. This is something that we do here at TOA, and you'll notice that when you send an email through and you're an existing customer, you are responded to within 2 hours. And we pride ourselves in that to ensure that we have the team and the time available through the use of executive assistants. So imagine you're a client, you're getting a response that quick. Just think about the experience your customers will have and what that means for your business going forward. It's vitally important that you consider all angles of this particular approach and potentially walk away from the traditional view of what an executive assistant looks like. If I flip the switch a little bit here and think about what that additional time means, in most instances, having an extra 2 hours could even mean $100 or $500 more per week. And that difference right there not only pays for an executive assistant, but it also gives you the opportunity to start to look at those different value-added services that you've been talking about for some time. Now, as I step through the next parts of this particular presentation, I want to refer you to a guide that's available called the EA Guide. It's available through our website. My team member, Nikki, will also post it into the particular chat, and you'll have access to it through this webinar. And there's some calculators inside that particular guide that will allow you to monetize or put a value against what that particular time saving looks like for yourself, across your team, and for your organization. So let's step through here a worked example of what that might look like for you as an accountant or even as you as the partner. So I've found in the last couple of months that I'm actually able to free up about 2 hours worth of time per day for my higher value activities. Now in this particular organization here at TOA, that means I've got laser-like focus on our sales activities. I've got laser-like focus on our account management activities and ensuring that we serve our customers to the best of our ability, but it also allows me to focus in on our most important product, which is our team members in the Philippines. And so what that means for our customers, but also for our prospect customers, is that the people you work with, whether they're based here in Australia or in the Philippines, provide you with the level of service that meets your business expectations. So if I roll it back into what it means in our working example right here, those higher value activities that I can implant myself into in this business might work out to $300 per hour. But based on $300 per hour, 2 hours per week, I've got a revenue gain or an opportunity to capture about 180K worth of activities per annum. So I want you to think about yourself, your team members, how your organization operates today. Cast your mind back to even last night or over the weekend. How much time have you spent or lost following up on activities that may not have been as highly productive or high valued as they could have been, because we did not have the processes or systems in place with the right people to assist us getting through those particular jobs? So really, really easy example. Once you've got the guide, you'll actually notice there's another set of instructions you can work through that are a bit more applicable to your particular hours and rates. So you notice on the left-hand side of the screen, I've got from half an hour of daily time through to 2.5 hours saved. And I've also got my hourly rate. So as you go from the left to the right and you work out what rate you potentially charge out at, plus the time saved, you can start to see there's some significant dollars or opportunity lost through revenue gain here that you may have got across had you had an EA in place. Now, as I said, it's a really simple example to work through, but walking away from or looking away from the traditional EA role, this particular opportunity in front of you right now is to really hone in on how could I make my team and myself more efficient, more effective, and place myself into the high value activities as opposed to the business that we all see ourselves going through. So you're probably saying to yourself right now, so what, Stephen? That sounds great. But I want to step you through now why it's important to take a consideration of this particular opportunity. And I wanted to give you some real life examples here at TOA that Nick and the leadership team have put into place over the last 2 years, and why it was vitally important for this business to make the shift from doing everything to actually leveraging the right services and resources at the right time to get the job done the most effective way. So approximately 2 years ago, Nick and the team implemented EAs for every single leader, whether they were a VP, a country lead, or a C-suite member. Everybody either had a full-time dedicated EA or they had a shared resource between different members. For example, our CIO, Ben Fish, has an EA, but he also shares that particular dedicated resource with his VP, Charles. And so what that means is they have a common person managing the time between each of them, and they can effectively make the most of their calendars together, which allows them to really focus in on those big improvements internally from a system point of view that allows our business to really jump up to another level. What we don't want to have in this organization is our leaders, is our frontline staff really, really busy and not using the bandwidth in front of them to actually bring our organization and give you, our customers, the right level of service. We've even expanded that into our Philippines operations, and Tim, our VP of Commercial Finance, he also has a shared resource with our CFO. And what's really, really cool here is as the EAs start to understand further and really get into your daily and business life, they're actually able to take on some more responsibilities. And I can give you an example right now where one of the EAs who reported through to the CFO and the VP of Finance, that particular person was actually able to go through the reports for a particular month, drive the meeting, and allow those particular team members, being the CFO and the VP, to really think about and become a lot more foresight or productivity driven that allowed our business to really shift into a different gear. And what that meant was we weren't just looking retrospectively, but it gave the two gentlemen time to actually put their efforts into what was most important for our organization. Another example I wanted to give to you was my work with Tom and the ability for Tom to take on some of those team pressures that we often come under. And so what Tom's able to do is effectively manage all of our calendars across the entire team. Tom can also instruct the particular team members around areas of focus for the particular week. Tom assists me with a weekly newsletter that allows the team to operate, get on top of things we need to know straight away, but also action items that are critical. So what I'm telling you today is that in real life, these particular positions exist, And for you and I, the most important thing to take note of and work through is understanding, one, where you spend your time today, two, where you feel like you have the most time wastage, and allow yourself and your EA to be comfortable to acknowledge that particular time and understand how you can make it more efficient and more effective. And three, utilize the EA outside of the bounds of what you think might be the restrictions. These particular people will become very ingrained into your personal and business life. So as we get more excited by this, and I guess the thought process around this is great, can I offload or leverage somebody to help me with my day-to-day job? It probably then comes down to the how. And this is probably the most critical element in determining what to do with your executive system. I can tell you from personal reasons that when I first joined this organization, it was a little bit uncomfortable to start with. I needed to release my control over my LinkedIn, my Instagram page, my calendar, and my emails. But as Tom and I get to know each other further and further, that particular confidentiality between the two of us has really strengthened, and I've released those reins so that Tom can actually spend some time and understands me further. So what I want to do now is spend the next sort of 15 minutes, and I want to take you through the things that I did that really helped myself set up for success, helped Tom set himself up for success, and the way in which we work together now really allows us to move at a really quick and fast rate that collects the critical items, but it also balances those non-critical items so that we both have a level view of what's happening and what's most important for us. So firstly, and I said at the start, it's really important that you spend some time and you track what you do on a week-by-week basis. So as you start to work out and you start to think through, is an executive assistant the right thing for me? You really need to uncover those areas or nuggets of gold. And what you're looking for here as you go through and you document your weeks is, I want to understand the things that I should be doing, and I want to keep doing these things. And then I want to really articulate clearly, what are those things that are slowing myself or my team or my organization down that I could potentially leverage a resource for. You'll start to notice patterns and behaviors that you like and don't like. And this is where you need to gather the conscious knowledge that you need to take to get those first steps underway. So point number one here is, make sure you understand your rhythm in which you operate, understand clearly the time that it takes to get those potential tasks done every single day, and work out what are the things that work really well for you, what are the areas that you're not so comfortable or happy with, and start to note those down in a conscious format so that when you do take on an EA, you have a really clear starting point and a race line to get to the finish that you're very, very well aware of. All right, first step is done. So what did I do when I first met with Tom, and how did I get across these particular things in an organized structure that made sense? Luckily for me, obviously I work with Nick and the senior leadership team here, and so they're able to give me some really easy and quick pointers to get up and running quickly. Secondly though, and because not everybody on the phone call has access to this particular team at a rate that I did, what I would suggest is you download our EA guidebook, and that will give you some of the frameworks to set yourself up with. If I think about my first few months here, the first area that I really, really focused in on was my email and calendar management. I think I mentioned before, I receive about 150 to 250 emails per day. Not all of those obviously are actionable, but the majority do require an eye or a bit of detail over to ensure that we're actually actioning the things and being on top of our business here. Some of them will take seconds, and as I said, some might take a few more minutes. So in the first month with Tom, I worked really closely to identify any quick wins. So things like emails from my team members, if Tom could action on my behalf, he would. Emails from customers looking for further information around what we do, how we do, and why we do it, Tom could do for me. Even looking at things in terms of internal social functions, Tom was able to take over. So what you want to identify in this first step of the process, and what I did was, what are the quick and simple wins that Tom and I can work alongside together to really start the ball rolling and what potentially could be a full takeover of my full social life. So that's step number one. Once you're comfortable with that, and once Tom and I were more comfortable in terms of the email and calendar management, I then opened up the world of my social and personal life. As I said before, this is quite a step in a different direction for me. I wasn't as comfortable with this as Tom may have been in the start, but this really gives you the lens to what an EA can do for you. And I know from my colleagues here, including Nick, they went the full hog, and their EAs have access to their entire life, which includes all their confidential items. So for yourself, you need to find a balancing act in between. And if you're more comfortable just keeping it to professional, that's okay. But allow the EA to work effectively with you and understand what those parameters look like. I'm going to take you through a couple more steps in just a moment, but I'll just pause there for a second just to reflect on what I've gone through to date. And that is strategically spend some time working out where you're spending your time today, what you like about that time spent and what you're not so happy about. Secondly, consciously make a decision as to whether those things that you are doing are for the benefit of your business or you truly believe will give you a benefit overall. And then once you've got your EA on board, spend time looking for the quick wins initially so that you can start to lay the foundation for an even improved relationship going forward. Another important component here is making sure that you use the technology and open up those technologies around you and your business to that particular EA. So in this organization, we use a tool called Teams, which most of you would be aware of, very similar to Skype and Slack. We also use Microsoft Office and across Excel, Planner, Outlook, etc. So what we were able to do in this organization was open up those particular user credentials so the EAs have full access. So as you start to create those riverbanks of how you'll work with your particular EA, it also allows you to work within the definitions of those technology streams. So Tom and I share a weekly planner, and that allows us to get across our action items and to-dos. So as we start to expand the scope of arrangement between the two of us, I can then start to increase some of those actions or activities that Tom does for me. So for example, I can now put Tom onto some special projects that allow me to focus in on the business, but also take on additional work, which Tom and I will then work through together. Our CEO, Craig, also has other uses for his EA with Ethel. From time to time on the way home, he'll actually record an audio file with his notes for the day. And so what that means is once Ethel receives that particular audio file, she's able to jot down action items, she's able to jot down any notes, and then make any communication she needs to, all from, I guess, where Craig is, which is driving home from the office. So really good way of using his time effectively. The second part is about building trust. And as I mentioned before, this is critical to the way in which you and your EA will work together. I was very fortunate coming to the organization that Tom had worked with a couple of team members who were here before me. And so what that meant was I was able to come into a space that felt safe, and I was able to jump straight into feeling very comfortable and very confident around what Tom could do. But here's some tips from myself about what it looks like so that you're comfortable jumping into the particular process, but also understand the why you actually need to give those particular reins, if you like, across to your EA. So in the first instance, Tom was granted full access to my email, and I was always a little bit conscious of who would be emailing through, but also if any of my friends decided to send through some emails that might include words or profanities that shouldn't be there, or even around particular items that were non-business oriented. So after getting to know Tom, I understood what he was about, and I understand that Tom has a girlfriend over in the Philippines, so I'm sure he won't mind you mentioning this. He also is a DJ on the weekends. He sells luxury houses and luxury cars, and he works at TOA. So this gentleman has got a lot going on. So what that meant for me, though, and my ability to, I guess, speak about those personal things, is it allowed me to open up about my personal life, my family based on the Gold Coast and Harvey Bay. I was able to speak to what I did on the weekends as well, what my true interests were, and straight away we built a rapport around the things that we had common interest in. From doing that, I was a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident to open up different layers of the way in which I work with people. So the first layer was my calendar. Tom then would send emails or reply upon my behalf. And then I also opened up the LinkedIn and I'm about to open up, if I need to, my Instagram access. So I guess what I'm saying to you before about looking at the traditional executive assistant role and function, that has changed and evolved to be what you need that particular function to serve, or its particular purpose in your life. As I start to expand on my professional remit here at TOA, I'm able to look at different opportunities outside of this that I can get Tom to assist me with, which will actually help me become more effective in my personal and my business life. One of the things I was a little bit worried about, as I said before, was the fact that friends were sending and receiving emails from myself, or even communications through LinkedIn. So I guess the thing is, you can't be afraid in this particular perspective. I wouldn't go as far to say you wouldn't tell things that you would say to your grandmother, but I think there's a rule and a guideline there. But just be open, be vulnerable, and allow that relationship to flourish, because the more information, the more confidentialities that you share, the easier the implementation of this particular role will be, and the more they can assist you in making sure you're efficient and effective with your business. So let's talk a bit about emails and calendar management. And unfortunately, I can't see you all, but if I was to do a raise of hands and I asked you, are you in control of your email and are you in control of your calendar? I dare say that half the audience wouldn't raise their hand. And likewise, in my previous roles, sometimes your calendar can get away from you, and particularly emails. I know with my personal email, I have about 40,000 emails that are unread. Many of those things, though, will never need to be actioned. So what I wanted to go through here, and this is probably one of the most important components of your first step into the world of having a virtual EA, is that you want to relinquish and give up some of those securities around your email management. And what I mean by that is not the IT security, but the security around the fact that your EA will see and will have access to all of the communications going to and fro those particular applications you give them access to. So there's a couple of stories floating around this particular office, but I want you to be aware of the fact that whatever is sent and received through your particular email station will be recorded and visible. And so you think about the language barrier, you also think about the particular Australianisms that you might use, any profanities. Like I said before, it's important that those things are uncovered and that you have trust between yourself and your EA from the day dot, so they understand how you operate. What I did effectively here was allow Tom to have access to my calendar from day dot. I also put rules and instructions around how particular people can make appointments and how others I would send them invitations. So things in this particular office is that we have a weekly sales meeting. And so I make sure that Tom manages and effectively brings in the right people for that particular meeting and ensures that the calendars line up. I've spent many hours trying to make sure everyone has the same or the opportunity to spend time with myself or across the team. And so what Tom can do is effectively find the right time that's available for everybody. And that happens in the background whilst I'm still doing my same job. So that's one of the first areas that I started, was calendar management. And then I moved into email management, which is a little bit more complex, but let's step through this and I'll take you through a couple of options here that would mostly make sense to those on the call today. So email management is, I guess, a big thing for the majority of us on the phone call. I've gone from having no folder structure through to having a folder structure that's quite complex, and I've landed somewhere now that feels quite balanced for me and enables me to effectively manage what's coming in, but also what's going out. So firstly, having an EA really allows you to sort and prioritize emails, and it makes sure you can assist, or he makes sure, in my instance, he makes sure I can assist and look at things and have a critical focus on those particular areas that are most important. So, for example, I've set up a VIP folder or a team folder where I have to action those particular emails. I've also got folders where I've allowed Tom to actually make amendments or changes or respond to, because those particular emails he's now aware of how to operate with. So the most important criteria here is starting with structure. Now, I've moved to another model now, and what that basically allows me to do is go through my emails, filter to the ones that are most important, and as I flag those particular emails, Tom will fold those for me, put it into the right area for future use, and he'll also get rid of or delete the emails that are not required. I've even gone to the point where I have all of my emails for the profession or industry articles go through into one single folder. And when I am on the road, I'm able to go through those particular emails and make sure I don't miss anything from that particular perspective. So number one is structure and creating the riverbank between yourself and the EA, like you would for your team members on shore, to ensure that you have a really, really consistent way of working that you're both able to mold to and utilize. The next part is calendar management. And so this is really, really important. It's easy to have your calendar clogged up with things that you may not need to be aware of, or you may not need to be involved with. So what you can do to really set yourself up for success, and this is prior to and in the first couple of months of an EA, is looking forward and understanding what are those critical big rocks that you need to be part of? What are those critical big rocks your team needs to be part of? So right now I can fast forward by 1, 2, 3, 6 months, and I can see exactly where my time is being spent. You want to do this because having those particular big rocks in place allows your executive assistant to work around those particular boundaries. And as those really critical and important calls come through, it will allow you to slot those things in if you have to by exception. Now, this is an example of Nick's calendar. And as you can see, he spends a lot of time, I guess, at global strategy level with the chief marketing officers, working on how we're going to facilitate an offshore best practice course. My calendar is a little bit different. But essentially, what I'd like to hone in on here is that the more structure you have around your calendar and the ability to exclude particular areas, allow particular times, and then have critical important times available will really help you and your EA understand and make the most of the time that you have available from a professional perspective. So have a think about that just for a moment. Think about your calendar today. Think about your inbox today. What are the things that are really slowing you down? What are the areas in which you find you can't get ahead of? Write those down on a piece of paper. And over the next 2 weeks, I want you to put a structure in place that allows you to, one, record where you have the busy times, and two, consciously make the decision around, is that the most effective use of my time? And once you have those two pieces of information together, it will allow you then, once you bring on an EA, to actually understand where to point them first and get the most of their time as well. So in the first month, Tom and I were gelling. We were getting to know each other, and we put some rules and boundaries in place to ensure that he and I knew exactly what was going on. After the first 30 to 60 days, it was interesting. I jumped into my inbox and I noticed things were moving around and I hadn't quite checked them. So that was a little bit uncomfortable to start with. But the reality is, under my instruction, Tom was now actioning those items so that my mind was focused purely on what was most important. We've now got to a stage where I have a zero inbox, which essentially means anything that I need to action is placed into a particular folder for urgent action, and other items are then brought up to me as the day goes by when they are important. So in the first month, you really want to set your E out for success. And so what that means for you and them is to sit down and spend the time, and it could be 30 minutes a day, but spend the time to understand what those riverbanks, those big rocks, and those focus priorities are for you so that you can both gel and mold into that single space. Couple of important things here to remember. So it's not all about work. If you're able to, you need to accommodate the time where you need to spend it with your family, have downtime, having your lunch breaks, because this will allow you to really effectively manage the calendar, but allow your EA to work around those particular focus times that obviously are of a priority. Most importantly is having open communication. So I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes with Tom in the morning. I'll probably have another 5 to 10 minute call with him at about lunchtime. And then before I leave every single day, I'll call Tom again to make sure that I'm across any important tasks or actions that are required. But again, it allows you to be on top of the next day's work or the next day's actions and priorities. So again, cast your minds to your day today. Think about what it is that's keeping you really, really busy. Is there the option for you to review that workflow, and potentially could there be someone assisting you right now in actually focusing you in on the things that are most important and potentially delaying those things that are actually just making you busy to another time or another day. All right, and in the following months, as I'm encroaching on right now with Thomas, is to understand further their strengths, their abilities, and what they're capable of. As I said before, I've got a quite strong relationship with Thomas, and I understand where his background is. The culture is really important, but also what he's interested in. So as we start to expand the horizon of what this particular role looks like today, it's important to understand that long-term picture as well. So for Tom and I, we now have the calendar and mail under control. Tom's also started to assist him with our internal meetings and making sure that I've got the right reporting available on a monthly and fortnightly basis. And Tom's even started to expand some of his remit into looking at how we structure the team from a cultural perspective to ensure that here in the Australian office, we have a really, really good, upbeat, excited culture, but it's driven by the particular activities we do with the team. So stick to your guns, ensure you get the structure in place first, understand your team member being the EA and how they work with you, and then start to expand those horizons as you go on. Quite exciting, but obviously as we start to expand and bring more customers onto the TOA network, we also then have different roles that come through. So we don't just service the accountants or financial planner roles, but of course, our team is built out by a support function for your entire business. What's really exciting here is that we have many clients who have executive assistants who support them in multiple different ways. And as you start to look at this as an opportunity for your particular firm, I think it's good if we are able to, if you'd like, provide you with some of those advocates and some of those examples so you can talk to a real life user who actually has an executive assistant in the Philippines virtually assisting them on the day-to-day work that they go through. So let's change gear a little bit. Unfortunately, Tom's not here to jump on the call right now, although I can see he's watching me. But I wanted to take you through some of his top tips in managing an offshore EA and why it's vitally important to set these things up from the start to structure your way of life with that particular new resource. So firstly, and just like any other role that you may have, it's important to invest time with your team members. So I mentioned before that I spend 15 minutes with Tom in the morning. I might spend 5 to 10 minutes with him on the phone at lunchtime. And then before I leave every evening, I spend another 5 to 10 minutes. I also want to make sure that Tom's comfortable with the apps or the systems that we use in-house. The more technology means we have to communicate, the easier it is for him and I to stay on top of those critical, important factors, but also for us to plan going forward. So it's vitally important that you spend the time orienting your EA through your organization, introducing them to all of your team members, structuring that particular role so everybody has a clear understanding and can articulate what your EA does and how they help you and how they play a part in that particular function, and then ensuring that your EA is well implemented, adapted, and inducted into the systems and processes of your business. So step number 1 here is setting the proper expectations. So ensuring that you have 30, 60, 90-day review points, and over that first 3 to 6 to 12 months, that you have outcome profiles or goals or KPIs that align to the outcomes you're looking to get from that particular EA. So things like, what is it you expect them to do and achieve? What does success look like for you and Tom or your EA? And now that particular success metric might move every 30 or 60, 90 days. It doesn't matter. As long as you're on the right path and you both have an open and conscious discussion around what that looks like from an expectations point of view, then you're in the right space. What it will also allow you to do is navigate those things that you might be uncomfortable with. And so as you start to open up the communication and conversation with your team member, you'll start to come across things that you may not have been so comfortable with in the first place. As your confidence grows, they'll start to know everything about you, everything good, bad, ugly, and everything in between. So what you'll see is that your EA will have access to everything about you. They'll even see what your team members are emailing through, whether it's negative or positive. They'll see what your clients are emailing. And then more importantly, and most important, they might even see what your friends email through. So encourage the open communication from the start. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. This will only allow you to be more successful in the long run and really utilize what is an awesome resource straight in front of you. Next component is looking at how to set meeting rhythms and agenda planners. So in terms of your operating rhythm, most of you on the phone would have a team or are starting to grow teams. It's vitally important as you go through that stage of your business to ensure that you have a set riverbank or set roadblocks in place that allow your team to come together, but it also gives you a rhythm in which you need to operate through. And they might be weekly meetings, it might be every couple of day meetings, they might be whip meetings. It's important from the beginning that you have that structure in place, and then you're able to plan for those particular agendas or meetings by utilizing the EA. Most of our team members here, as I said before, in the leadership levels, have an EA or a shared resource. And what's really, really cool about having that particular resource available is not only can they assist you with your day-to-day work function, but as you come into meetings and as you come into tasks to be actioned, they'll actually take the notes, they'll be fully complemented into what you do day to day, and they can even start to provide you with forecasts on where you need to go next. So it really allows you to start to structure your life and your professional life in a different way. And the fourth, I guess, one of the steps that I missed in my first 30 days was providing active feedback. So just like your team members onshore who require upskill, capability shift, and often positive or potentially opportunity reinforcement, it's important you have the same cadence with your team members in the Philippines, whether they're an executive assistant, an accountant, or even financial planner. So feedback's important, and that particular loop and closing the feedback is even more important. So take the time to go through. You can create formal assessments if you like. You might even have end of month or end of quarter or half yearly performance conversations. It's important to ensure open communication and then encourage immediate feedback so that as you start to build and bond together, you can operate as one unison person. All right, and the fifth thing here is equip your EA with the tools that they need to be, I guess, powerful, exceptional, and empowered to do what they need to do with inside your business. So again, it's really important. These are the things that will actually set you up for success. There's only 5 key things here, and they're all available through our EA hiring guide, which Nikki has now uploaded for you into this particular chat. All right, I'm going to pause as we've gone through quite a bit in the last 48 minutes. I'm happy to take any questions through our Q&A. And appreciate if you'd like to, if you can come off mute. If you can't, that's okay. I'll take any questions and I'll be here for a little while. If you need to contact me, I'm Stephen Watts, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Alternatively, if you'd like to look and dive into a little bit further about our EA availability or even our other offshoring solutions, including accountants, financial planners, customer service team members, Paul Dove and Natalie Kale are our BDMs here based on the Gold Coast. They're also available for you at any stage. And finally, before I wrap up and open the floor for questions, there is a poll available, as you can see on your screen right now. Nikki might be able to upload that for me. Nikki, if you can. Just a 3-question poll. If you'd like to hear from us about an EA and I guess setting up that particular opportunity for you going forward, give us a yes. If you want more information, you'd like to be contacted in the future, also just let us know from there. Excellent. So that draws us to a close. As I mentioned, if you'd like to ask any questions, I'm here with my team. We're available right now. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure taking you through why it's important to have an EA, and I look forward to meeting you all in the future, hopefully at some stage in person or no doubt online again. Thank you very much.